Blashill. Please let us know in the chat if you'd like to ask a question. We'll start with Lane St. James.
Jeff, just 32 victories this season. What are the positives you take away?
Well, I'd start with the fact that, as I've talked about, we stayed in the playoff race longer than we have in the last couple of years, probably since we started the rebuild. I thought we had as much hope as we've had. So I think that's a positive. I think certainly a big piece of that was being able to have an influx of talent with guys like with young guys like Seider and Raymond, and certainly they've had huge impacts. I was just saying to Trevor, I mean, I think the impact Seider for me is hands down the Calder winner with the minutes that he's had, the defensive and offensive responsibilities he's had, and Raymond would be right there and should be, in my mind, probably second. And then, we had obviously some guys have real good offensive years in Larkin and in Bertuzzi. I thought Lark's got back to being a real impactful offensive player. I thought Bert took another step in his offensive game. Is there other areas to improve on for those individuals? Absolutely. But certainly those are all positive things.
Jeff, do you have a meeting set up with Steve, or kind of what's next there for you?
No, nothing. You know what? We've just been focused on the season. So obviously the game just ended, and so I'll plan on watching some girls lacrosse and boys hockey tomorrow.
And what are these next few days going to be like for you? I mean, last year was 10 days between the end of the season and an announcement regarding your future.
You know what? It was 10 days for you guys. It wasn't 10 days for me. There's a difference there. So again, honestly, I've been focused on trying to get ourselves ready for this game here tonight. And I got a sports filled weekend with youth sports tomorrow.
Lastly, did you stop at any point tonight and just kind of, you always talk about appreciating it. And I know yesterday and leading into the game, you were preparing for it, but in the final seconds there.
Not really, again, I was happy for Bert that he got his 30th. Happy for Magnus to step in and win a game after being with us. I thought that was great. Obviously, Sides gets his 50th point. So, other than that, just good. Obviously, it's way better to walk in the locker room after a win.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Ansar Khan.
Yeah, Jeff Hellberg. I'm sure it was good to get a game in for him, and for a guy who hadn't played in 2 months. I mean, how did he look out there?
Did a good job, and one of the reasons we didn't play him earlier is we were at a spot at the end of the year where we haven't practiced hardly at all. So we really didn't get, full practices in. We had one yesterday, so I thought that was good for him. He had plenty of work with Jeff Saleko, and so I thought he was able to get himself, back to being game ready. And I thought he came in and did a solid job.
You talked a lot about Decider and Raymond. Just the fact that they played all 82 games and they were consistent, basically from start to finish. How impressive is that for rookies to come in and just to have that kind of consistency and just play all 82 games?
I think it's impressive. I think it certainly speaks to the patience. I think Steve Eisman and his management group showed, specifically with Sides, playing a full year in the American League, playing a full year in Sweden prior to being an NHL player, that just made him that much more ready. And certainly, there's probably been situations where other guys have on other teams have been, kind of called to the NHL at times too soon. And even Razor, obviously played a full year after and was able to come and have success. And I thought both guys did a good job. Listen, both guys, as I've said this lots, they don't want to be good rookies on a non-playoff team. They want to be great players on a great team. And so they both have lots of work to do without a doubt. But both, I thought, impressed, as I said earlier, really did a good job this year.
Just lastly, Rasmussen, another a strong game, a strong finish for him over the last however many months of the season. What's your message to him going into the off season as far as what to work on and what areas to improve on coming into training camp?
The one thing with Ras, he's got the big body, and those big bodies take longer at times to develop. And I still think he can have a heck of a summer in the weight room and continue to build that power and strength that he's going to need to have to be real impactful. I think he's worked hard at his skating in the last number of summers, and I'm sure he'll work hard at his skating again this summer. There's certainly a few things offensively that Alex Tanguy and him have talked about, and then I think next year it's just the consistency, and that honestly comes a lot of times with experience. He was asked to be a player in a lot of defensive roles, and it's like a young defenseman. It takes time a lot, and so I think the experience he gained this year should hopefully continue to help him down the road.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep, thank you.
Max Boltman.
Hey, Jeff, you mentioned Bertuzzi's 30th. It looked like guys were really looking for him there late in the game. And first of all, what were you guys, that something you guys talked about? And second, what goes through your mind when you see, teammates trying to help him out like that?
Well, our guys are good people and they care about each other. And our guys were very aware of where he was at. And, so they were working hard to try to get him that one. And obviously Bert's had a heck of a year. And I think it was, important to all of us on the bench to see if he can get that. And so it was great for him to be able to do it.
And then with Veleno having got a look here lately with high up in the lineup at center with a couple of your best offensive players, what would you like to see him take out of this last kind of stretch and experience to end the year?
How hard it is to be a real impactful player in the NHL when you're playing up the lineup and you're ultimately playing against other teams' best lots of nights. And, I just think for any young player, it's really, really important to understand the level of that you have to play near your best every single night. You can't be 90%. You can't be 85%. You got to be as close to 100% as humanly possible every night. If you want to be an impactful player in this league. And so hopefully he picked that up and it'll help him in the future.
And then last thing, I know you talked about kind of the letdown, or have talked about the letdown that came with, sliding there toward the end of February on, but do you still view this year as overall a step positive for you guys as an organization?
Well, it's definitely as an organization. I don't think there's any doubt that the arc of the organization's headed in the right direction. And there's no doubt about that. So I think there's positives to be looked at from the year. I think, there was times this year where our team showed really, really great and extraordinary type sacrifice and work ethic. And there was times this year when we played our best hockey that we were as good as anybody. We beat a number of good teams. Certainly there's a lot of areas for growth. I've talked about that lots. But there's a lot of positives to be taken out of it now, and there's negatives. And ultimately, we have to find ways to take as many steps forward as we can, and we got to limit the steps backwards. And we had too many steps backwards, but there's no doubt, as I said to start this, the arc of the organization's headed the right direction.
Thanks.
Yep.
Last question, Ted Colfin.
Hey, Jeff, from what you guys saw in practice, I mean, what are some of Hellberg's strengths?
Well, the obviously one would be his size. He's a big man, and he fills the net well. He competes hard. Very, very mature person. Really enjoyed being around him. So I would say, Ted, we didn't get a lot of chance to practice with him. But to say I have an unbelievable feel for him, I'd be lying if I knew, exactly what he was. Potentially, we might have played him earlier, but it was hard to know exactly what he was with the few practices we had. And obviously it's a tough time of year to come in, but as I said, he's a really mature guy, and I thought he came in and did a good job.
Jeff, the fact that he's 31 and not 21, does that help or hurt him maybe going forward, trying to get an NHL job?
Hard to say, hard to say on that. I think, 31 for a goalie isn't, you still have good years in you. His body's in good shape, so it's really hard to say for that. I guess we'll see what the future holds.
Sounds good. Thanks for this, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, those are all the questions we had tonight for Coach